Barney Butterwick, notorious prankster of Elm Street, adjusted his Groucho Marx glasses. A mischievous glint danced in his eye. Today was April Fool's Day, and Barney, a man who considered it a national holiday, had outdone himself. He'd placed an ad on Craigslist. Not just any ad, mind you. This ad, in bold, screaming letters, announced, "Free kittens, dipped in gravy." Now, Barney, being a staunch animal lover and a vegetarian, had no intention of involving any innocent felines in his shenanigans. No, this was psychological warfare. A harmless bit of tomfoolery designed to elicit bewildered chuckles from the good people of Elm Street. He pictured it now. Mild confusion, followed by a knowing smirk, and finally a hearty "Barney's at it again." Oh, how they would laugh. They always did. Except this time, something was different. This time, Barney had inadvertently unleashed chaos upon Elm Street, a chaos stickier and more pervasive than a gravy-soaked kitten. The first sign that things were amiss came in the form of Agnes Periwinkle, Elm Street's resident busybody and owner of the world's fluffiest Persian cat, Mr. Whiskers. Agnes, a woman who could sniff out a scandal from 3 blocks away, and often did, arrived at Barney's doorstep in a flurry of indignation. "Kittens and gravy? Have you no shame, Barnaby Butterwick?" she shrieked, her voice reaching a pitch usually reserved for opera singers and panicked parakeets. Barney, taken aback by this unexpected ferocity, stammered, "But Agnes, it's a joke. April Fools." Agnes, however, was not amused. "A joke?" she scoffed. "Animal cruelty is no laughing matter, young man." And with that, she stormed off, leaving Barney to ponder the fickle nature of humor. He hadn't even considered the animal cruelty angle. Barney loved animals. He'd once rescued a squirrel from a near-death experience involving a rogue frisbee and a garden gnome. He'd even nursed a sick pigeon back to health, feeding it mashed peas with a tiny spoon. The thought of anyone harming a furry creature sent shivers down his spine. This was not the reaction he'd anticipated. Where was the amusement, the good-natured ribbing? Barney, starting to feel a knot of unease in his stomach, decided a strategic retreat was in order. He sought refuge at Mildred's Diner, a greasy spoon that served as Elm Street's unofficial town square. There, amidst the aroma of burnt coffee and sizzling bacon, Barney confessed his prank to his best friend, Harold "Harry" Grumpington. Harry, a man of few words and even fewer facial expressions, listened patiently, his gaze fixed on a plate of lukewarm mashed potatoes. When Barney finished, Harry, in his trademark deadpan delivery, uttered a single sentence. "You used gravy." Barney blinked. "Yes, gravy," he repeated, unsure of the relevance. Harry sighed, a sound akin to air escaping a punctured tire. "Mabel's prize-winning gravy," he clarified. Mabel, the owner of Mildred's Diner and creator of a gravy so legendary it had its own fan club, was a force of nature. She was also fiercely protective of her culinary creations. Her gravy, in particular, was a subject not to be trifled with. Barney, suddenly remembering the gleam in Mabel's eye as she described her secret ingredient, love, dear boy, and a dash of nutmeg, felt a chill run down his spine. This was worse than he'd thought. As if summoned by the mere mention of her name, Mabel appeared at their table, her expression grim. "Barnaby Butterwick!" she boomed, her voice laced with a potent mix of disappointment and simmering rage. "I hear you've been slandering my gravy." Barney, his tongue suddenly tied in knots, could only manage a feeble, Mabel, however, was on a roll. "Dipping innocent kittens in my gravy. Have you no decency? My gravy is a gift, a culinary masterpiece, not a condiment for your twisted amusement." Barney, sensing a lynch mob forming in the diner's periphery, knew he had to act fast. "It was a joke, Mabel. A harmless prank. There are no kittens. No gravy was harmed in the making of this prank," he blurted out, his voice cracking under the weight of Mabel's glare and the growing murmurs of the diner patrons. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. The damage, it seemed, had been done. Word of Barney's kitten gravy prank had spread through Elm Street like wildfire, fueled by Agnes's outrage and Mabel's wrath. Soon the entire town was embroiled in the controversy. The Elm Street Gazette ran a scathing editorial titled, "Gravygate, a Stain on Our Town's Moral Fabric," while the local radio station hosted a heated debate on the ethics of pranking. Spoiler alert, opinions were divided. Barney, once the town's beloved prankster, was now public enemy number 1, accused of animal cruelty, culinary sacrilege, and general bad taste. As if things couldn't get any worse, they did. Mr. Bigglesworth, Elm Street's most pampered poodle and star of the annual doggy fashion show, went missing. His owner, the flamboyant and perpetually distraught Percival Featherbottom, was beside himself with grief. "He's gone! Vanished! Taken, I tell you!" Percival wailed to anyone within earshot, his voice a mixture of despair and high-pitched hysteria. "And to think, I just bought him a new pair of trousers for the doggy fashion show. Trousers, I tell you, with tiny little suspenders." The disappearance of Mr. Bigglesworth, coupled with the recent kitten gravy scandal, sent Elm Street into a full-blown frenzy. Rumors swirled like leaves in a tornado. Had Barney, driven mad by his gravy-induced infamy, kidnapped Mr. Bigglesworth? Was he holding the poor poodle hostage, forcing him to endure a fate worse than gravy? The townsfolk, fueled by fear and a healthy dose of morbid curiosity, demanded answers. Barney, now a social pariah, found himself trapped in his own home, besieged by angry mobs armed with pitchforks. Figuratively speaking, of course, although Agnes did brandish a particularly menacing-looking spatula at one point. The situation had spiraled so far out of control that even Barney, master of chaos, was starting to panic. He paced his living room, his mind racing. He had to clear his name, but how? He couldn't very well produce a non-existent kitten or conjure up Mr. Bigglesworth from thin air. He needed a plan, and fast. As he wrung his hands in despair, his gaze fell upon a roll of duct tape sitting on his coffee table. Duct tape, the universal fix-it solution, the answer to all of life's problems, or at least that's what the commercials claimed. Could it possibly save him from this mess of his own making? Barney, clutching the duct tape like a lifeline, decided it was worth a shot. He spent the next few hours crafting a plan so audacious, so utterly ridiculous that it just might work. He would become Elm Street's unlikely hero, the detective who solved the case of the missing pants and cleared his name in the process. He would show them that Barnaby Butterwick was more than just a prankster. He was a force to be reckoned with. He grabbed his trusty notepad, donned his thinking cap, a rather fetching fedora he'd found at a thrift store, and got to work. His investigation led him to the most unlikely of places, Mrs. Periwinkle's backyard. There, hiding beneath the hydrangeas, he found Mr. Bigglesworth, happily gnawing on a pair of tiny gravy-stained trousers. Agnes, it turned out, had found the missing poodle wandering the streets, drawn to her yard by the irresistible aroma of her freshly baked tuna cookies. Mr. Bigglesworth, a notorious gourmand with a penchant for fine dining and even finer trousers, had apparently helped himself to a snack before embarking on his adventure. Agnes, horrified to discover the missing garment and assuming the worst, had panicked and hidden the poodle, fearing accusations of canine couture theft. The truth, as it often does, was far stranger and more hilarious than fiction. Barney, with a flourish worthy of Sherlock Holmes himself, revealed his findings to the stunned townsfolk. He even produced the missing trousers, much to Percival's tearful delight. The crowd, initially skeptical, erupted in cheers. Their hero was back, and he'd brought back the pants. The kitten gravy incident, as it came to be known, became the stuff of Elm Street legend. Opinions on Barney's prank remained divided, but one thing was certain: life on Elm Street would never be the same. Agnes, despite her initial outrage, eventually saw the humor in the situation, even going so far as to offer Barney her recipe for tuna cookies, Mr. Bigglesworth approved. Mabel, however, remained unconvinced. Her gravy, she declared, was not a laughing matter. She did, however, present Barney with a lifetime supply of her famous mashed potatoes, a peace offering he couldn't refuse. As for Mr. Bigglesworth, he became an overnight celebrity, his adventure immortalized in the Elm Street Gazette's fashion section, Poodle Pants, a cautionary tale. He even won first prize at the Doggy Fashion Show, sporting a new pair of trousers, sans gravy stains, and a triumphant grin. Barney, his reputation restored, albeit with a few gravy-stained cracks, learned a valuable lesson about the unpredictable nature of pranks. He vowed to be more mindful of his audience and to steer clear of gravy-related humor, at least when Mabel was around. And so, life on Elm Street returned to its usual quirky rhythm, the kitten gravy incident fading into a humorous anecdote shared over cups of Mabel's strong coffee and slices of her even stronger apple pie. Barney, forever changed by his brush with infamy, continued to spread laughter and chaos in equal measure, albeit with a newfound appreciation for the fine line between harmless prank and town-wide pandemonium. He even added a new tool to his prankster's arsenal: common sense. Well, that, and a lifetime supply of duct tape. Because, as Barney had learned, you never knew when you might need to fix a gravy-related disaster or fashion a makeshift pair of tiny poodle trousers.